There's a reason Superman stands at the top. He's more than muscle and cape. He's a symbol of restraint, power with purpose, and a constant reminder to choose the right path even when you have the strength to force your way through. As an artist, I've always been fascinated by how simple lines and colors can carry such weight. It's not just the S on his chest, it's the way he's drawn that makes him believable as a protector, an alien, and a man. Welcome everybody to the channel. This is Art to the Round Table. My name is Mello, and in this video I'm walking you through my entire process of creating this Superman gouache painting, from the pencil sketches to the inking, sealing it with gesso, and then painting it all with Hemi gouaches. This is my most detailed process breakdown so far. If this is your first time here and you're into comic book art, traditional painting, or just enjoy seeing superheroes come to life from scratch, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I share full art processes and deep dives in all my videos. Alright, let's get to the pencil sketch. Sketching, to me, is never about perfection. It's about energy and intent. It's the foundation of everything. So right now, I'm just focusing on gestures and keeping it loose as much as possible. I want to get the form in there first. And to get my angles right, I'm using a posable model to help me lock in the correct posture and shadows and the twists of the body. The tricky part here is the foreshortening of Superman's fist, bringing it towards the camera in a way that feels powerful but believable. To pull that off, in this and in all my drawings, I do several passes with my pencils. The first stages is pretty quick, a lot of gesture and scribbles. What I'm building is a silhouette, place markers for future passes. I'll begin to refine lines and look for and build focal points. And for this drawing, the majority of my attention will be, obviously, on the face and the fist. You will notice after a few moments or so of drawing that throughout the process, I'll take a tissue and I'll rub the loose graphite all over the paper. I'll touch on that a bit later. But more importantly, this part is never about rushing. The sketch and the drawing has to be solid. I have to sell myself in the idea of motion before I even think about inks or paint. I want to make it feel real and authentic, even if the subject matter, in this instance, is fantasy and cartoonish. Before I move into the inking, let me explain to you why I rub a light layer of graphite over the entire drawing. This gives me a neutral tone across the whole page, a kind of mid-tone base that I can work from. Then, using a kneaded eraser, I'll go back in and I'll lift out highlights and certain details. This creates depth before I even touch the ink, giving me a clear map of where the light hits and where the shadows fall. It also helps me control myself during the inking. Too much ink can flatten a drawing fast, but by having these value markers already in place, I'm less likely to overdo it. This method keeps me in check and preserves the three-dimensional feel I want in the final piece. Moving on to the inking, I'm using several Pentel brush pens filled with Doc Martens India ink. And the one part I want to focus on first, of course, is Superman's mug. The groundwork from the pencils and shading is done, so I'm not here second guessing myself anymore. I've already asked all the important questions during the pencil stage. The pose, the light direction, anatomy. Now it's time to commit. In fact, this might be the part of the process where I spend the least amount of time. I'm moving quickly, but I'm not moving recklessly. Ink has a funny way of humbling you the moment you get careless. I stay relaxed, and I let the brush pen flow. Before every major stroke, I do a few ghost passes. My hand moves as if I'm inking, but without actually touching the paper. It's a rhythm check, a dry run to keep my lines intentional. Ink rewards confidence, but it punishes arrogance, so I'm trying to stay sharp. And I'd be remiss if I didn't at least give a shout out to my inspirations. As I was inking the face, I was thinking Neil Adams, his ability to carve out form with sharp, clean lines, but still keep a character alive. That was the energy I was aiming for here. When I hit the hair, I was thinking of Jack Kirby, the king, to guide my hand by using bold, chunky shapes with confident sweeps. Kirby hair doesn't need a million strands, just rhythm and flow. As I move my focus onto the body and to that forward thrusting fist, my approach shifts yet again. This is where the fluidity of Steranko comes into play, making the lines flow around the form, while the hard, deliberate contours of Scott Williams and David Finch keep it sharp and aggressive. Each section deserves its own weight and flow, and the line work has to respect that. I'll let the rest of the inking speak for itself. With the inking almost done, this is the moment to just pause and take in what's in front of us. Right now, the drawing feels alive, bold, black and white, full of motion, form, and weight. But it's also in a very precarious stage. One careless move with paint or water could ruin everything. And that's why sealing it properly is the key. The next step isn't the most glamorous, but is one of the most important. So before I touch paint, I'm going to seal the entire piece with clear gesso. And for that, we'll be able to get some much needed fresh air. Let's go. It's definitely not the flashiest step, but skipping it can ruin your piece pretty quickly. Smudged inks, lifted lines, and to me it's not worth the gamble. This process locks in the inks and adds a subtle grit to the surface, perfect for gouache to grip into. Sealing the entire piece with clear gesso has now become one of my favorite parts throughout the creative process because it means that I'm one step closer to painting. Alright, looks dry, feels dry, got a good texture on it. What do you think? Right? Let's get painting. With the gesso dried and cured, it's finally time to start painting. The first thing I lay down is an underpainting of orange. Now, why orange? Well, the majority of this piece is going to be dominated by deep blues for Superman's suit and a dark and moody background. That first layer of orange gives me a bright, active foundation. It helps me see my colors clearly when the real painting begins. And I start with Superman's cape. It's going to serve not just as a red accent, but as a compositional frame. It's going to cradle his face and then guide your eyes downward straight to that S symbol and then his fist. Here's a painting tip that works wonders when you're dealing with reds, especially on something like what I'm working on here. Yet another reason for why I used orange as a base underneath. Reds can sometimes look flat or dull when applied directly onto a neutral surface. That orange underpainting not only acts as a foundation, it boosts the vibrancy and adds a natural warmth that makes the reds feel richer and deeper once layered on top. It's a subtle thing, but when the light hits it, you'll get that oomph that you're looking for. For his face and the skin tone, I'm leaning on the classic Zorn palette. White, black, yellow ochre, and a touch of red. In this case, vermilion. That limited palette keeps the skin feeling warm and unified without distracting from the overall painting. For Superman's suit, I'm sticking with a single blue for the base midtone, and I'm adding black into it to create a deeper tone for the shadows, and adding a white later for the highlights. That's it. It's quite a simple palette, but I'm letting the values do all the heavy lifting. I don't need 100 shades of blue to sell depth. By controlling where I laid down the darkest shadows, like I did in the previous ink stage, and keeping my highlights intentional and crisp, I can make the suit feel dimensional without overcomplicating it. With all the base layers of the figure now in place, this is where the painting really starts to feel like sculpting. I'm not staying locked in one spot. I'm moving around the figure, adding layers little by little, almost like I'm chiseling the form out with color. I think of this phase as building the figure in paint. You're shaping light, shadow, and depth, not just filling in areas. If you're enjoying this process so far and you want to see more breakdowns like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It lets me know there are like-minded people out there who enjoy traditional art and creative deep dives just as much as I do. Also, a quick question. If you're using gouache, or have used it before, what brand are you using right now? I have a few brands on the sidelines like Arteza and Holbein, but I've been sticking with my Hemi gouache set. I intend on using that set until the wells run dry, but I'm always curious about what other artists are using, so drop your go-to gouache in the comments below. Alright, now I'm going to let you watch the layering work itself out. Now watch how the figure starts to gain volume as I keep shifting around, refining bit by bit. Now that the figure is built up, it's time to tackle the background. I'm keeping it simple, mostly black with some white paint splatter and motion lines to amplify the speed and intensity. The splatter gives it that raw kinetic energy, like Superman is punching through space itself, and the motion lines, they're subtle, but they'll guide the viewer's eye right back into the figure, keeping everything in constant movement. It's easy to overdo a background, but with a character as iconic as Superman, less is more. The focus has to stay on him. And to do that, we start adding our final touches, the little things that pull the entire piece together. Adding subtle highlights to Superman's hair. These aren't overly bright, just enough to catch the light on the curves and gives his silhouette some extra pop against the dark backdrop. Then I'm refining the heat vision glow. I want it to feel like it's burning from within, not just sitting on the surface. It's these almost invisible details that make a big difference when someone takes a longer look at your piece, at your paintings, at your drawings. And there he is, Clark Kent, Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Looking at the finished piece, I'm proud of how every stage built up to this. The foreshortened fist, the intensity in his face, the limited palette, working hard, and the background pushing all that momentum forward. I want to know what you guys think. Do you like it? Is there something that you would have done different? Or is just a question about my ongoing creative process? Drop a comment and tell me who'd you like to see next in this full process breakdown style. I'm always looking for the next challenge. And if you haven't already done so, I'm going to ask, please go ahead and subscribe, hit the like, and share with someone who you think would enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. Your time is greatly appreciated. This is Arts of the Round Table. My name is Mello, and as always, I'll draw you later. Bye-bye.